You're listening to Career Coaching with John. Thoughtful approaches, lasting change. My name is John Fielkowski, and welcome. We're going to start a multi-part series called Scarcity in a Land of Plenty. Why unemployment isn't failure, it's a disconnect. This is part 1, the myth of the job board. Side note, let's begin with a detour into 19th century utopia. In the rural wilds of upstate New York, a man named John Humphrey Noyes decided that the modern world, its rules, religion, and its economy, was broken, and that we needed to do something new. Noyes founded the Oneida Colony in 1848, a radical social experiment built on the idea of perfectionism, that humans could live free of sin if they just gave up the systems that corrupted them. This community practiced complex marriage, a system where everyone was married to everyone else. Jealousy was considered a spiritual failing. Sexual relationships were regulated by committee. Older men initiated younger women, and in return, the older women initiated younger men. Children were raised by the group, and monogamy, they believed, was just another form of private property. We have established a state of society in which, in many respects, is the very reverse of institutions, Noyes wrote. We have given up exclusive marriage, and with it, selfish love and quarrels. Cool. Well, their goal wasn't just moral or sexual. This was more than orgies and good times. And no, it wasn't a cult in which teenage girls were married off to the men in charge. This was an economic and spiritual movement. They believed industrial capitalism was making people selfish and anxious. So they created a world where ownership, labor, and love were all shared. It was intense, controversial, and maybe a little strange. And yet, in its own way, it worked. For a while. When the colony eventually collapsed after Noyes' death, something surprising happened. The colony went mainstream. They incorporated. Oneida Limited became one of the largest producers of flatware in the United States, and the name is still around. So today, when you pick up a fork, you could be holding the ghost of an idea that the world we're born into isn't the only way it has to be. Well, you're listening to Career Coaching with John. My name is John Fielkowski. This is episode 5, The Myth of the Job Board. Stay tuned. Welcome back to Career Coaching with John. The Oneida Community was reacting to the disorienting pace of industrialization. Machines were transforming life, labor, and identity. The world was becoming faster, colder, and more standardized, and not everyone agreed that the decided way of dealing with it was the right way. I think it's important to remember that we're not the first generation to experience massive technological change, and we're not the first to feel lost inside it. Discomfort, confusion, and even a sense of dislocation, well, these are natural responses when the world shifts from underneath your feet. And today, we feel this all over the place, not just in how we work, but how we connect, how we rest, and even how we make choices. Every app is asking something of us. Every platform wants a slice of our attention. There's always another update, another system to learn, another login, another password to forget, and another tool that promises ease, but somehow makes things more fragmented. The job market is where this hits the hardest and it becomes most acute when we lose a job and we need to figure out how to get back in. When unemployment strikes, it doesn't just mean a lack of income, it can feel like a collapse of meaning. You start to question your value, your identity, what you're even for. You wonder, if the system isn't picking me, does that mean I don't matter? Some Canadian studies have shown that unemployment significantly increases the risks of mental health issues, including depression and anxiety, underscoring how a job loss affects not just finances, but also personal identity and well-being. It's important to say this. The root cause here isn't laziness or failure. It's not because you're not good enough. It's because the system is designed to be seen and not see you. We built a world where you can spend hours, days, even months in search of a fit that feels more like a mirage. We've made people invisible by design. Even good candidates, even great candidates can get lost inside it. That's not a personal failure. That's a disconnect. Let's start with something that's quietly maddening. Job postings that never seem to go away. LinkedIn recommended me a job in October. I applied for it in January just to see what would happen. I was recommended the same position just yesterday. It's April. And I'm not really sure what that means. Were they never hiring? Is this city of 3 million devoid of quality candidates? Did the role get filled and just no one took the post down? Are they truly that incompetent? Are they collecting resumes for later? It starts to feel like a game you can't win. I can't be the only one who's noticed this. Even when you do apply, there is another invisible wall. The applicant tracking systems. These are the digital gatekeepers scanning your resume before any human sees it. They're looking for keywords, specific phrases that match your job description. If you don't hit the right ones, you're out. Not because you're unqualified, but because you don't speak the robot's language. Studies suggest that over 70% of resumes submitted online are never seen by a human. That is how easy it is to get filtered out. But it's not personal. It's procedural. And it's deeply frustrating. But this also represents a lack of imagination from you, dear job seeker. You walked right into the trap. But that lack of imagination isn't because you don't care. It's because you haven't figured out the process, or you can't bring yourself to properly execute. Our game is strategic, and if we want to win, we need to be clever. Well, I've been there, and I did what I thought I had to do. Of course, doing what I had to do resulted in predictable results. Not getting the interviews I wanted, and settling on a job that wasn't right for me. I was worn down, tired of seeing the same jobs posted over and over. I applied anyway, but half-heartedly. I didn't want those jobs, and it showed. The same roles kept popping up, roles I had already applied to but didn't want. I applied anyway, and not with hope, with obligation, not because I thought I'd be happy, because I thought I had to. The same lack of energy exists on the hiring side too. As a former hiring manager, I remember reviewing resumes and feeling numb. Not overwhelmed necessarily, numb. I'd receive hundreds of nearly identical applications, flawless resumes that told me nothing. No voice, no point of view, no sign whether or not this person actually wanted the thing. At some point, I started ruling people out for arbitrary reasons, not because I was cruel, but because I couldn't tell if anyone was even real. I wasn't looking for perfection. I was looking for presence. What I longed for was some sign of real interest, something human. A note that explained why someone cared about the role, a sentence that told me how their brain works, a moment of insight, a flicker of personality. Just something that didn't feel like it was written for everyone and no one at the same time. Instead, I get MBA grads applying for entry-level roles. Maybe they were desperate. Maybe they thought they were overqualified and could fast-track. But mostly, I think they were just applying for everything and anything. I knew they couldn't be serious. And I get it. On the other side of the screen, someone's probably thinking the same thing about me. Why didn't I get a reply? Why did no one follow up? I'm clearly qualified. Why should I even bother? Well, the truth is, I didn't know how to sift through it anymore. The system failed both of us. I hired the people that reached out directly to me. So I have to ask, if job sites like Indeed and LinkedIn aren't really tools for matching, what are they there for? Are employers now just expecting candidates to work around them? And if so, How? This isn't just a job seeker's problem. It's a systems disconnect. Social platforms, job boards, and media sites don't thrive on accuracy. They thrive on volume. A job site with lots of opportunity looks more successful than one with only a few. So they're incentivized to show more listings, even if some are outdated, duplicated, or never intend to be filled. That means job boards aren't always a reflection of real hiring needs. They're more likely a reflection of marketing needs, of how active and vibrant a site wants to appear. The result is that a system isn't designed to help you get you hired, but to keep you engaged. And to do that, it needs your data. These platforms correct resumes, profiles, clicks, and preferences. They track what you apply to and when, and in exchange, they give you back what you gave it. Some basic keywords and the last job on your resume, over and over. And the more you use them, the more the system thrives on that data. So if volume is the goal, and if the platform is successful, then the employer will be as overwhelmed with applications as the seeker. So what do? Well, they look for more software, tools to rank, filter, sort, and automate. By now, they're solving a problem that technology created with more technology. And AI, of course, can multiply your capacity, so we end up reviewing more applicants or sending out more applications. And what does that create? More volume. More volume on both sides, more noise, more sameness, more systems managing systems. What is the instinctual human response to being overwhelmed with options? Well, we tune out. We scroll faster. We stop looking for the best and start looking for the easiest. We make quicker decisions based on thinner information. This is something psychologists and economists have been studying for years. It's called choice overload, or also known as the paradox of choice. When people are given too many options, the quality of their decision tends to drop. We freeze or disengage completely. This isn't anecdotal. Psychologist Barry Schwartz, in his book The Paradox of Choice, writes, "Learning to choose is hard. Learning to choose well is harder. And learning to choose well in a world of unlimited possibilities is harder still." I didn't expect Barry to sound like that. Anyway, when faced with too many options, people often freeze and make worse decisions, not because they lack ability, but because the cognitive burden becomes too much. Each new option into the list of trade-offs, and trade-offs have psychological consequences, Schwartz notes. The more we have to weigh in, the more we second-guess, the less satisfied we are, even if we get what we wanted. In hiring, this may lead to higher standards, not necessarily because the job requires them, but because employers need a way to cut through the volume. So the bar rises, not to find the best, but to shrink the list. And this is how we all get lost, because the system keeps shouting and no one knows how to listen. Does this create a kind of corporate monoculture? Maybe. One that favors applicants who know how to navigate the system? Are we building workplaces that reward algorithmic fluency over lived experience, education, curiosity, or divergent thinking? Or do we just hire the person we know and call it a day? You can call it nepotism. I call it survival. Now that's something to return to. This is Career Coaching with John. Let's take a little break. Welcome back to Career Coaching with John. My name is John Fielkowski. Oh, that was Sensual Jazz by Grand Project. I sure hope I haven't brought you down so far. That's not the point, and you know it. But being honest about the situation is a great place for us to start strategically building back the community we need. So let's move forward and ask what's next. Well, this technology isn't going anywhere. Applicant tracking systems, automation, AI, they're going to get smarter, faster, and more common. They're going to either improve to meet our needs, or people will stop trusting them. That is how systems evolve. But in the meantime, and unless we want to follow in the footsteps of the Oneida Colony, we have to live in the world as it is, not the one we wish existed. So, let's start with a reframe. Job boards aren't maps. They're billboards. They are broadcast opportunities. They do not help you get there. They are noisy, bright, and often outdated. They might point to something real, or they might point to something imaginary. Either way, you need to find your own way to the door. So let's talk about what you can do. For job seekers, start by believing in your abilities. You've done great things. Start there. Tell your story. Write like a person, not a keyword machine. Let your voice show. Behave like an entrepreneur. Make offers, take initiative, reach out. Don't wait to be picked. Start choosing. The system might not be built for you, but you can still cut through it by acting like a human in a world full of machines. And for employers, set realistic expectations. You aren't looking for a unicorn. You're looking for a fit. Make your desires known. What kind of person succeeds in your environment? Say it plainly. Set a clear path for success. What does good look like after 30, 60, 90 days? Be explicit in how you want to be approached. Do you want a call, an email, a cover letter? Most people won't read it, but the ones who do will delight you. And if you want great candidates, you have to give them something to respond to. You have to meet them halfway. What we need now isn't more automation. We need to return to something far more powerful: human creativity. The ability to connect, to craft, to say something meaningful, to notice when something feels right, even if it doesn't check every box. Because when the technology stops working, it's humanity that cuts through the noise. Thank you for listening to Career Coaching with John. Thoughtful approaches to lasting change. This was episode 5, The Myth of the Job Board. Stay tuned for parts 2 and 3, which will be focused on demographics and wants and needs. There might just be a part 4, but I don't know yet. My name again is John Fielkowski. You can find more of my work at johnfielkowski.com. If this episode resonated with you, I would love to hear from you. Share your thoughts, your stories, or your questions. And if you know someone who's stuck in the job search and feeling lost in the noise, send this episode their way. You never know who needs to hear it. And of course, Spotify and YouTube thrive on volume, so turn it up and subscribe to the podcast if you want me to be successful. Some final thoughts. There is a lot of great advice out there about how to navigate this strange and shifting world of work. It's not hard to find, and a lot of it is great, but here's what I want you to remember when you read it. Well, maybe I'll let Barry say this one. You work for yourself now, always and forever. I think Barry's voice will be my new inner monologue. John, you work for yourself now, always and forever. Imagine if your psychologist talked like that. Oh, amazing. Now, it's not just a slogan. It's a mindset. No matter who signs your paycheck, your career, your value, and your direction belong to you. So take a deep breath. Step back. Reconnect with who you are and what you want from this world. Because no algorithm can do that for you. Well, this was Career Coaching with John. I'll see you next time.